Exit 0. The highway was supposed to end 2 hours ago. I'd been following the same black stripe of asphalt since midnight. The same road signs, the same rhythm of the wipers scraping off mist that never became rain. The GPS on my dash whispered, "Continue straight for 42 miles." And the voice had stopped sounding human somewhere around mile 90. I was heading home from a late delivery shift, a route I'd driven a dozen times before. But tonight the highway felt wider, emptier. The air pressed down, thick as wet cotton. My cell signal had died around the last exit. Exit 27, and every station on the radio gave the same thing. Soft static that rose and fell like breathing. A shape appeared through the fog. I leaned forward, squinting. Exit 0. 1 mile. The sign shouldn't have been there. There was no exit 0 on any map in Georgia, not off I-22, not anywhere I'd ever run freight. Still, the reflective green shimmered like wet glass under my headlights. For a second, I thought maybe I'd missed a construction reroute. I tapped the brake, watching the rear view, empty. No cars behind me, none ahead. The road swallowed the sound of my tires. When I passed the sign, something flickered in the corner of my eye. A movement, like another sign facing backward. But when I glanced into the mirror, the highway behind me was gone. Only blackness. Like my taillights were shining into a tunnel that had no walls. I rolled down the window for air. The wind was wrong, warm and cold at once, carrying something faintly metallic. And beneath it, I heard a sound I still can't explain. The low moan of tires over pavement, but not mine. A car pacing beside me in a lane that didn't exist. "Hell no," I muttered, easing off the gas. My headlights touched another green board rising out of the dark ahead. Exit 0, 1 mile. The same sign, same distance, same tilt of the pole. I checked the odometer. I'd driven almost a mile since the last one. But the number hadn't changed. The GPS recalculated with a soft ding and said, "Approaching destination in 0 miles." The voice on the GPS repeated itself, a recording caught in a throat. "Approaching destination in 0 miles." Then silence. The map froze. The pulsing blue arrow trembled, lost its outline, and bled into the screen like ink in water. I smacked the side of the unit once. Habit from an older car. But the plastic felt damp, as if it had been breathing. Headlights flared in the fog to my right. Too close. No road there. I jerked the wheel left, expecting impact. But the light passed through the passenger window without glare, a pale sheen moving over the glass like something swimming behind it. It left the faint smell of overheated wires and rain that never falls. I kept both hands at 10 and 2. The wipers groaned. Up ahead, the shoulder widened into a patch of gravel and an emergency call box that shouldn't exist anymore. The handset hung on its cord. The booth had no graffiti, no bugs, no dust. Too clean, like a set piece. I pulled over. The engine idled with a slow shake. In the rear view, nothing. The black behind me didn't have distance. It had depth like a well. I opened my door and stepped out. The gravel looked pale as bone meal. The air tasted refrigerated and sweet. The handset was warm in my palm. No dial tone. Just a low, steady murmur, like a hospital room behind thick glass. I held my breath to hear it and caught words, my own name, spoken without accent, as if it had never belonged to a mouth. I hung up. When I turned, she stood by the passenger door, thin and soaked with a wet that didn't drip. Her hair lay flat against her skull. Her jacket clung as if the pockets were filled with water. Her eyes were open too wide for the light. I didn't jump. I didn't shout. I had the sense that any sudden motion would break something important. I unlocked the door and opened it from the outside, not offering a hand. She slid in without brushing the seat, like weight learned new rules. I got behind the wheel and shut my side. The cabin filled with the smell of river silt and oil. She didn't look at me. She stared forward, face angled toward the windshield, not seeing the glass, seeing through it into something that had more detail than this night. "Where to?" I asked. My voice sounded small, as if the car had been bigger a moment ago and was now narrowing to fit us. Her lips moved. A whisper escaped, bound to something else. "You saw it." I nodded. "Exit 0. She blinked a long blink, like her eyes had to step into themselves. "It shows to the ones who won't live to see morning." The engine knocked once, a hollow knock from a room under the floor. I put the car in drive and eased back onto the black ribbon. The fog closed behind us without folding. At the edge of my headlights, the sign appeared again, green and wet. "Exit 0, 1 mile." She whispered, almost kind. "Keep going." We passed the sign. The odometer did not. I watched the 10th digit, waiting for the click. It stayed. The needle's tremors stilled. The road surface felt smooth for a mile, then ribbed, then smooth again, as if the highway were reusing itself beneath the tires. She kept her hands folded in her lap. The cuffs of her jacket darkened and lightened without absorbing or releasing. Every few seconds, her head tilted slightly, the way a person listens for footfalls in another room. "What's your name?" I asked. She didn't tell me. She said, "I was supposed to meet a bus." "When?" "Before the night broke." She swallowed without a throat sound. "Before the sign moved." "How long?" She shook her head. "Time isn't honest here." Another sign rose out of the fog. "Exit 0, 1 mile." This one leaned right, a kink in the post. The next one would lean left. I knew it as if memory had rented space in me. I glanced at my phone. No bars. The clock had frozen on 3:07, and now pulsed back and forth between 3:07 and 3:06, indecisive. The GPS screen returned, blank except for that blue arrow, but the arrow no longer pointed. It watched. "Where does the ramp go?" I asked. "Not where," she said. "When?" Then, gently, like a nurse, "You already know what it is." I thought of the night my uncle died. Highway crash 2 exits from home. The trooper said it looked like he had changed his mind 3 times in the skid, as if decisions could be measured in asphalt. The family whispered later that he'd started seeing things, shapes and mirrors, his dead mother waiting at the foot of his bed. He'd told me once that if I ever saw a sign that made no sense, I should keep my eyes on the lane lines and not answer if it called my name. "What happens if I don't take it?" "You do," she said, not cruel, certain. "Everyone does." The road is patient. The radio had been mute. It clicked alive with a burst of breath. No station ID, no music. A voice came through, flat, official, the tone emergency dispatchers use when they make a message a bridge. "Highway advisory. Heavy fog between mile 0 and mile 0. Avoid travel." I turned the volume down to nothing. The voice spoke at the same strength, ignoring the knob. Driver, reduce speed. Passenger, remain calm. You are approaching exit 0. She closed her eyes. Don't answer it. It learns your air. How do you know? Her mouth twitched. I've been practicing leaving. Up ahead, 2 signs at once. Parallel like open doors. Exit 0. 1 mile and exit 0. 1 mile. One brighter than the other, as if one were painted and one were projected through sleep. Between them, the black descended a shade. The lane reflectors went out like a string of dead stars. I gripped the wheel and kept the car centered between whites that didn't reflect. Your hands? She said softly. Whatever you do, don't take them off. A glow pulsed in the fog to our left, the shape of a cruiser light bar seen through smoked glass. It kept pace at 30 yards without sound. Then a crackle. The radio panel's orange displays shifted to frequencies I hadn't set. 9.0 flashed, then 0.9, as if the machine tried to decide where 9 belonged. The voice arrived, filtered through a fan. Unit calling northbound sedan. Reduce speed. We see you. Hands 10 and 2. It did not say my plate. It did not say the make. It said, Darius, keep your eyes forward. The car's heat kicked up without my hand. Sweat pricked my neck. You don't know me. The passenger watched the road, not me. It knows all our names. But it doesn't know how to carry them. She spoke like she'd practiced the sentence in a blind room. It says them like a cough. Darius, the radio said. Independent of dial, independent of off. Approaching destination in 0 miles. Turn it off, she said. It ignores mute. Break it then. I didn't. I let it speak our breath back at us. The left shoulder widened, the right narrowed. The lane lines took on a faint green cast, the color of the sign. Static built. Through it, another voice cut. A child, distant phone-on speaker quality. Mom? The woman's hands flexed. She didn't move. Her face didn't change. Something in the air changed around her, pressure rebalancing, the way a room adjusts for grief. Don't, I said. The child's voice repeated, Mom? Then, are you coming? She whispered, I never had a son. It sounded like a confession written on skin. The cruiser lights flared and became oncoming headlights. A high beam glare filled the windshield white, then slid past without a car attached, a headlight phantom that left my retinas burned with 2 perfect circles. I blinked hard, vision filming, and in those pale ghost discs, I saw a ramp peeling off the right lane, unlit, unsigned, raw asphalt with wet gravel edges. No guardrail, no merge zone, a mouth. There, the radio said, exit available. The sign arrived again, standing over the ramp like a podium. Exit 0. 1 mile. The arrow had been scraped off. The metal showed through, a wound. I slowed. The speedometer needle jittered. 40 felt like 20. The tires lost the sound of textured highway and found the hush of a new pour. Not yet, she whispered. The ramp approached anyway, not moving but lengthening, like a shadow across a floor. The wheel tugged 2 degrees right. The power steering groaned. I wrestled it back and felt the car consider arguing. The voice on the radio broke into 2. One low and official, one high and breathy. The low one said, "Prepare to depart." The high one said, "You can rest now." My name came again, not from the speakers, not from the dash, but from the black mouth of the ramp. Darius. Spoken the way a nurse reads a chart before touching you. "Keep going," she said, almost in my ear though she hadn't moved. "Past it. Past this one." What happens if we pass? We arrive at the next. They get closer. The last one doesn't warn. We passed. The ramp fell behind, and then beside, then under, as if time couldn't decide which order was polite. The engine's hum lowered and stayed there, too smooth for the speed, as though the transmission had found its own level and liked it. Up ahead, a rectangle of light opened. A classic rest stop scene, a single-story building with a vending alcove and a coffee machine no one refills. The lot held 2 cars, a rusted sedan, a pickup, but their windows caught no glare. Their shadows pointed 2 directions, and the rain on their roofs didn't bead. It lay flat like paint. I pulled in, tires crunching on gravel that looked poured from a sack. The building's fluorescent tubes buzzed in a key that made my molars ache. The air smelled of chalk and coffee grounds. An American flag hung without stirring. A map of the state filled one wall, the county's blank. She didn't open her door. I did. The hinge squeaked, a sound I knew from my car, normal in a place that wasn't. I stepped under the overhang and listened. A payphone stood against a pillar, handset in place. A trash can held a single paper cup. Above the restroom entrance, a sign read, "Shelter in event of severe weather," and pointed down. I followed it. A stairwell descended into a basement that shouldn't exist in this soil. The first step flexed under my weight with a sound like someone pressing on wet wood. The light down there was not made of bulbs. It was made of memory diluted. "I wouldn't," she said from the car, voice barely raised. "It's where the ones who know they're late try to bargain." I stood with one foot on the second step. The air rising from the basement wasn't temperature. It was pressure change, like standing at the door of an airplane. In it, I heard paper turning, measured, as if someone were flipping through files where nothing is written but every page weighs a little more than it should. I retreated. I took the last look a person takes, the one meant to prove later to yourself that you had a choice, and walked back to the car. She still faced forward, hands folded as if strapped there by ceremony. On her wrist, a hospital bracelet bloomed into view under the jacket cuff. Ink blurred. It had no name printed. Just a smear where ink had been and then decided against staying. "You came here," I said. "We all stop at different versions," she said. "I got coffee that didn't steam." A woman in an orange vest told me the machines were being serviced. She had no shoes. "What did you do?" "I waited for someone to take the ramp with." She turned slightly, and the seat creaked, honest sound in a lying night. "You're the first one to pull over." "Why me?" "Because you heard the second voice on the radio." A pause like a held breath. "You hear the kind that isn't broadcast." Her eyes met mine for the first time. They were a normal color. That frightened me more than anything. Normal didn't belong here. "We should go," she said. "The longer you stand still, the more the exit grows teeth." I put the car in gear. The vending machine hummed and expelled a single packet that hit its glass with a dull tap. It wasn't food. It was a folded, laminated card. On its face, a diagram of a clover leaf. Every ramp was marked with a 0. We rejoined the highway. The lot behind us unmade itself. Not vanishing, but losing adjectives until it felt like a thought someone forgot to complete. Back on the road, the signs returned with a new rhythm. One every half minute, even as the clock refused to tick. The woman's breathing slowed. It matched the engine revolutions, a low, synchronized lull that tried to turn the space between us into a tunnel. It wanted me to enter. I kept my hands tight and counted reflectors. "Tell me what happens," I said. I needed words to pin the night to. "You take the exit," she said. "Sometimes you don't mean to. Sometimes you think you're helping someone else take it." She looked at the glass. "Sometimes you follow your own brake lights. And then you go down. It's shorter than it should be. The gravel becomes softer. If you open your door, your feet find a surface that feels like packed earth under a tent floor," her voice thinned. "And then you see a second sign that says mile 0. It points in both directions at once. What's at the end? There's no end. There's a place where you stop wishing for one." The radio hissed with a certainty that made my hands ache. "Darius," it said, perfectly pitched, like a loved one practicing. "Slow to 20. I held the speed. The needle briefly danced like a heartbeat. The fog ahead parted with a tear. Through it, a figure stood on the shoulder. Man or billboard or something that had learned a man's shape. It held a reflective triangle, inverted, the kind you put behind a broken-down car. The triangle's red glimmered wet. Behind it, black. No car, no ditch. Just a man's shape and a warning about nothing. I didn't stop. The man shape lifted its arm, palm out, but the fingers were too long for the palm, and the palm didn't have lines. And when the hand lowered, something inside the triangle blinked. "Did you see that?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Don't look at it again." The next sign wasn't green. It was white, tall, narrow, reflective like bone, with black letters. "Last exit before exit 0. The highway's paint brightened. The windshield fog began to crawl inward from the edges. Not moisture, but a kind of dimming that made the corners of the car less detailed. I wiped at it with my sleeve and left no streak. "Almost there," the radio soothed. "Prepare for merge." I heard another sound inside its sound, high and thin, like a cassette player winding down. "Hold your breath," the woman said. "When we pass the next sign, the night tries to get inside you." I tried. I pulled air and kept it. My lungs protested, then quieted. We passed the sign. A pressure touched my ears from the inside, like cold fingers. It pressed again, testing. Something slid across the roof. Not weight, attention. She released her breath first. When I let mine go, the air in the car changed flavor, like metal cooled. The ramp appeared without sign. The black shoulder simply sloped, and the lane lines turned their heads toward a slit in the dark. Gravel scrimmed under the right tires. My hands tightened. The steering asked a question. "Don't," she said. I didn't. The car trembled as the ramp fell away. We kept to the main line. The ramp continued beside us for a few seconds, like a runner. Then it rose, impossible, and crossed over, an overpass with nothing under it. I stared up through the fogged glass. The overpass had no girders, just black laid upon black, a lighter shade like cloud on cloud. When it ended, the radio said, "You missed your exit." Then softer, "Recalculating." Her fingers unclasped. She said, almost proud of me, "One left." "How do you know there's one left?" "Because you didn't look at the triangle long enough for it to count as a choice." The highway narrowed. The shoulder crumbled to a lip, like dried skin. The center line became a seam. I had the sense the car was no longer driving on road, but on the idea of a road maintained by belief. I believed as hard as I could. She leaned forward a fraction. The motion made the air between us ring. Hear that? At first I heard nothing. Then I did. A faint door hinge squeal, repeated every few seconds, not from the car, not from the road, from ahead. A door swinging on a slow, sure arc. My grandmother had a storm door like that, I said. And the moment the words left me, I wanted them back. I had given the night a piece of my house. It learned your tone, she said. It may try to use it. The radio snapped off. In the silence, I heard another car behind us at last. Tires, engine, a presence. I checked the mirror. The black behind me didn't reflect, but the sound grew. It came fast and slowed near our bumper. Don't brake, she said. The car behind us drew alongside on the left in no lane. I kept my eyes forward. I saw it anyway. The peripheral described it. 4-door sedan, metallic paint, not a color, metal. Windows blacked fully. No driver silhouette. It matched my speed, then nosed ahead. The passenger window rolled down without glass lowering, and the absence of glass made a hole in the night that showed a ramp descending into number. From that hole, a voice came. It was my own. Brother, you missed the turn. I didn't look. My hands were the measure of me. The other car drifted closer until its nothing window pressed against our air. My door panel twitched inward without touching. The steering wheel lightened, like someone else had their hands on it, ready to help. The woman spoke to my copy of me with a steadiness I envied. He's not riding with you, she said. He's driving. The not car eased away. Its taillights did not come on when it passed in front. It didn't cast shadow. It simply faded. Speed without receding. The hinge squeal grew louder, and under it, a latch's click repeated, teaching itself how to be soft. On the shoulder, a shape hunched. An abandoned fridge or a vault door laid on its back. As we neared, it lifted, hinged, opening toward the road without support, swinging out and back like a mouth. What is it? I asked. The last thing that opens for you, she said. I understood and didn't. The shape kept swinging. The gust from it hit the car with a smell of dry laundromat heat and pennies. My eyes watered. For half a second, I saw an interior behind it, long, white, with metal shelves and tags on strings. Keep going, she said quietly, urgently, as if the word itself kept the axle aligned. Don't slow. Not now. The door swung out. The hinge screamed a full-bodied scream. The latch gave. For a moment, it stayed open, perfectly matched to our speed. And in that moment, I felt the car lean into it like a body into a hammock. I pressed the gas. The last sign came without letters. It was a green rectangle with the reflection scoured off, matte with age that hadn't yet happened. It stood at a slant over a black mouth so complete, the fog ringed it like hair. The ramp down didn't begin. It was. My headlights went no farther than my hood. The steering grew light, then nothing. The wheels spun half a degree under my palms, seeking. The engine sound left the car and hung somewhere ahead of us, as if it had been moved outside to be judged. I kept my hands where they had been all night. The woman inhaled once, shallow. We're on it, I said. She didn't answer. The car's underframe hissed, pebbles kissing the steel. The grade steepened. The seatbelt tightened a notch around my chest. The darkness had substance. Cotton soaked in slow water. It pressed against the windshield and seeped through the vents in a way I could not taste, but felt along my gums. The radio, dead a moment, sparked a single word. Arriving. "Listen," she said. At first I heard the engine. Loud, not because of revs, but because the world around it had gone quiet. Then, under it, many engines, each patient, each idling in a way that suggested waiting. The way a line waits at a red light, no one sees change. I realized the grade's end approached, not because I saw it, but because I felt the weight shift from chest to knees. The ramp leveled, the wheels settled, center finding itself. Headlights struck a sign planted at driver's eye height. Mile 0. Arrows point both ways. The arrow pointed both ways, alternating with a blink, an old neon trick, a promise that had mislaid its object. "What now?" I asked, and heard the last of my control scratching at its own door. She said, "This is where you decide if you're leaving alone." "I don't understand." "You can go alone," she said, unwavering. "You disappear. They find your car in a ditch, or they don't. Your name gets said in rooms. Time behaves." She looked at me, so steadily I had to brace. "Or you take someone with you. The road lets you climb out. It gives you back to the wrong morning. You keep your name, but it hears you when you sleep." "Who would?" "People who aren't ready to let go of their face in the mirror," she said. "People with appointments in the morning. People with fear that looks like obligation her gaze did not accuse. People like me." I shook my head. The darkness pressed it back in place. "You tried to take someone." "I tried to pull my sister in," she said. "She drove around me." She went on. She married. She lit a candle for me. I think she does still. The sign blinked left, then right, then both, then neither. The engines ahead, below, behind, thrummed without combustion. The ramp behind us was not behind. It was a lid. "How do I go down?" I asked. "You don't," she said. "You say something that lets the road think you have." "What words?" I asked. She closed her eyes. "You tell it the name of the person you would have taken." I kept my mouth shut. The ramp waited. The car sat in its hush. Somewhere, far above us or inside us, the hinge swung once more. Slow, satisfied. I whispered no names. The darkness took a breath I felt behind my sternum. The sign's arrows dimmed until the plate held only its own shape. The air grew colder against my teeth, not lower temperature, older. It carried the taste of basements in houses no longer on their lots. My hands had gone numb where they touched the wheel. I did not remove them. "Darius," the road said. It didn't speak through equipment. It pressed the syllables against the windshield from the outside, like rain spelling. "Da, re, us." Then again, as if writing practice, letters too big for the space. I thought of my father. I thought of the last time he said my name right. I thought of the last argument we had and how the air seemed to sharpen after. None of those names would I give to this mouth. The passenger opened her eyes. She had been listening to something I couldn't hear. "Decide," she said gently. "Either way, the night finishes." "What happens to you?" I asked. Her expression didn't change. "I'm always here." That's the price of trying to pull someone through. It seemed impossible that the choice in front of me could be that bare. looked at my own reflected hands in the faint glass. Two dark shapes against less dark. I looked at her and saw the proof of what she was. Not dead and not alive. Held here like breath someone forgot to release. I won't take anyone, I said. The road made a small sound, like a single page turned. It was not displeasure. It was inventory. Outside the car, lightless shapes arranged themselves at the edges of perception. Signposts without signs, mile markers without numbers, delineators without reflectors, the memory of a guardrail. I spoke again, voice steady. I won't take anyone. The woman watched the windshield dim and brighten in the old rhythm the fog had taught us. Then you'll go down, she said. You'll disappear the right way. And you? I asked. Do you want me to try to take you? Something in her face loosened, sorrow or relief, or the tiny muscle that controls both. You can't, she said. I am what happens when someone tries it. I closed my eyes and pictured a morning. Not one I'd had, one I wouldn't. Light on my table, a cup cooling, the radio failing to find a station and settling on the hum between. My name written on junk mail that would go on being delivered to an address grown wild. The picture held me upright. When I opened my eyes, the sign had gone. There was only a field of night the color of the inside of a shut mouth. I'm ready, I said. She nodded once. Then keep straight. Don't move. When the ground stops feeling like ground, don't panic. When the wheel begs for your left hand, don't give it. When you hear the child ask again, don't answer. I heard, faint as capillaries. Mom? She stared forward, mouth in the shape of a name I would never learn. The car moved. Not forward, not down. It moved out. The engine note thinned so far I could see it. The breath left my throat with the softness of linen being pulled. The black around us developed a texture, like cut velvet, frictionless under a palm. The steering wheel heated, then cooled, as if someone were testing its endurance. The headlight beams shortened until they were only two pale scars on the hood. The road said my name again, and I said nothing. It presented me, finally, with one last thing. The sound of my mother's voice, perfect in every vowel, speaking from the open door of a house we no longer had. Come inside, baby. I kept driving. The car found ground like a heel finds a step in the dark. The weight of it returned. Heavy, absolute. The engine came back into the cabin. The heat found the vents. The steering wheel remembered me. I felt the shake of everyday road, expansion joints, patched tar, the low cusp where new asphalt meets old. We were on a highway, not the same. The fog had lifted into a high ceiling. The sky above it had no stars. The lane lines were crisp and new. A mile marker passed on the right with a single digit. 1. I checked the rear view. The ramp wasn't there. No ramp, no sign, no black well. Just a straight, empty road reaching back to a horizon that didn't produce dawn. The passenger's jacket had dried. The smell of river silt had become faint, and then memory. She looked more like a person who had been in the car a long time. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, and it left no ink on her fingers. What did we do? I asked. Passed through the place with no numbers, she said softly. Came out on the other side of counting. Is this morning? I asked. Not for us, she said. For someone. Ahead, an exit sign rose, ordinary green, with a number I recognized. Exit 28. The town listed beneath it was a place I'd driven through many times. The font was the font of the world. I slowed. The car responded the way it ought to. The radio came back with a rush of local ads, half overlapping, and a country song about not being ready to go. My phone woke. 3:07 shifted to 6:14 in a blink. A text from my sister, hours old, popped up. "Call me when you're off." The woman sat very still, as if she might crack the new air. "Take this one," she said, "not to drop me off. I don't have an address here. Take it because this is the first exit that belongs to somebody else." I signaled. The relay clicked, sweetly human. The ramp curved down and spat us into the lighted edge of a town just waking up. I had some storefronts with their signs off, a diner with steam on its windows, a bus stop with a bench where no one sat. I pulled to the curb by a newspaper box. The papers inside bore today's date. The headline did not know my name. We sat there with the engine running. The car's fan ticked. Across the street, a woman unlocked a laundromat and propped the door with a plastic crate. The smell of detergent lifted into a sky that looked like it might choose sun. The passenger turned to me and finally smiled. Small and wrong, in a way that didn't hurt. "This is where I get out," she said. "You said you don't have an address." "I don't," she said. "But someone will call a number and it will ring again. I will answer. It will sound like a wrong connection. Then the person will remember a different thing they meant to do, and they will do it." She touched the handle. "That's enough." "Will I see you again?" I asked. "You will see a sign," she said. "You will think of me. That will be me enough." She opened the door. The light leaned into the car, and for a moment washed her of the wet she'd never had. She stepped out without looking back, and closed the door with an ordinary car door sound. The best sound I have ever heard. She went to the newspaper box and put her hand on the glass, as if checking the temperature of the day. Then she walked toward the bus stop and sat. A bus would come or wouldn't. The bench would hold her either way. I pulled away. At the corner, a street light flickered and steadied. In the rear view, she was a small shape on a long bench. Then the view shifted. Cars filled in. A bicyclist wove. The world asserted itself. I merged onto the morning highway. The sign rose on my right, green and dull in the new light. Exit 0. 1 mile. It was not there. It was there. It was a memory I could drive past. I did. At mile 2, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it buzz, then answered. A child's voice said, "Mom?" I said, "Wrong number," and ended the call. My hand stayed at 10 and 2. The road did what roads do. Somewhere behind me, somewhere ahead, somewhere in the seam the night keeps. A door swung once, and then, at last, went still.
Thank you for listening to The Storyteller's Moon. If this story touched you, scared you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps the stories alive, and I can't wait to share the next one with you under the moonlight. Until then, may your nights be safe and your dreams unforgettable.